You're listening to the 14th Source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes.
I am Dee Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And we are your two overeducated, codependent nerd hosts, bringing you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses. In the episode for Friday, October 14th, 2022.
Oh my gosh. Look, there's a lot going on this week.
There is.
She-Hulk is wrapping up.
Oh, man.
But we're not going to talk about it till next week.
Probably next week, yeah, let's be real, yeah.
But what I was going to say, but also Andor, the new Star Wars show, is just punching in every week. Is like, it's one of these Star Wars shows where it's like, look, it's not like Star Wars. It is, you know. It's kind of like how people talked about, at least in my mind, The Mandalorian when it first came out. Like, This is not just like another fucking... There's not just dudes with lightsabers everywhere. Like, it is doing... I mean, I always joke that Rogue One is one of the few movies in this... the few stories in the franchise that really captured Star War to me.
Right. There's a war in the stars in that movie, yeah.
And it's, and it's real. Like, and this show is doing that...
Okay, so you're positive on it because like it's
I mean,
like with every show,
I love everything.
Like it's always divisive, however you want to call it, and Andor has been particularly dividing people. From what I've heard, I haven't watched it yet. I actually want to watch it, but I actually got a really good piece of advice. I think, even though I haven't seen it, about with regard to approaching the show. One, if you don't care too much about Star Wars, that's fine.
Yeah,
it's a good like political kind of. Revolution show. Two, and I guess this is what the writer-director said, because I guess this is kind of like a rarity amongst, especially franchise works. Like it's basically the brainchild of one dude, who's like doing all the writing.
I believe the fella that did Rogue One. I think, or at least he's one of the guys that did Rogue One. The writers is also involved with this. I thought it was, but either way. I mean, I'm just gonna say, like, I'm enjoying it. I'm surprised at what it's doing, where it is doing this very different take on the Star Wars. I really liking it. It's a slow start. It is a slow fucking start.
So what I heard was that Tony Gilroy is the creator of it and writing everything. But yeah, he was a co-writer of Rogue One. Also wrote like movies that people regard really well, like Michael Clayton, like serious like capital D dramas, right? Not really known for his genre work, but from what I heard is that he's envisioned. Well, one thing he's like, this is a finite series. He's like 2 seasons is the story.
Spoiler: we know how this guy dies.
Well, yeah, fair. But no, he's like this is a 2-season show, and from what I understand, he's writing it instead of like having a continuous story for a season, he's kind of breaking it up because is it 6 episodes or 8, something like that?
I don't actually know.
Where he's like, the first 3 episodes are basically story 1, the second 3 episodes are story 2, and then the final 2 episodes are like story 3.
I can
wait
see
for
that.
the season to come out so we can watch these chunks, almost as like, because Nicole and I, we watch every Friday. This is going to sound really silly, but we love it. Every Friday, it's movie night for us, and so we always drink a bottle of cheap champagne and watch a movie. But like 3 episodes, because I'm guessing they're probably like between 30 and 40 minutes long. That's like a good movie length, right? And so like, and if it's especially if it's kind of got a beginning, middle, and end. Sure, I'm sure it carries on. Like the threads carry on from beyond that, throughout the season. But like. As like an experience, like I feel confident going like, okay, we can get into the show, and instead of being bogged down by it being slow, not that actually would bother us, but like let's just watch it all at once. Kind of, it sounds like as Gilroy intended, and it sounds like it would be a good time.
Well, I'm just saying, so far, I've enjoyed it. I did watch the first 3 episodes came out at the same time. I watched them one at a time over the course of like every couple days. That's actually, I may say don't do that, like especially the first 3, because it is like the first couple episodes are like, okay, where are we going? And so I think once you get all 3 of them, like that story, it fits, it feels a bit better.
Okay,
but I want to say, big shows, big studio show. I'm enjoying it. I want to throw it out there. We're not going to say anything about it. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess the only other question, because you have consumed a lot of the TV content for Star Wars. Is there any other facet of the Star Wars universe that you think would make an interesting show? I know we have, technically, I don't know if they're moving forward, but we have the Ahsoka Tano show, or at least limited series coming.
And I mean, I don't know of the infinity of things they announced like 3 years ago. I don't know which of them are actually still happening.
Outside of that, I guess is what I'm asking. What would you be interested in? Because obviously you've been saying like Rogue One is like your favorite Star Wars
movie. Right, and I like, I mean, to me, like Rebels was also a similar kind of like, I like what they're doing, new characters that are still telling the stories that we kind of know.
Right.
I don't know. I think
nothing's standing out.
Like I'm curious to see, because I know that they've been developing, leading to, I think with Ahsoka Tano, to like a kind of a capstone on Rebels.
Okay.
Which, if you've seen both Mandalorian season 2 and the Book of Boba Fett, they reference things that happen at the end of Rebels.
Right. Well, isn't the character from who's the cowboy with the guy that looks like he's from Abe's Odyssey?
Oh, Cad Bane.
There we go.
Well, he's from Clone Wars. Yeah, no, what I'm saying, though, is that, like, the story of what Ahsoka Tano's doing in those shows, that's actually, like, reference. She references specifically what is happening. Like, what she's trying to do is referencing what happens at the end of Rebels. Gotcha. She's basically, she's looking for somebody. Right, and it's pretty clear that's where it's going. Like she's gonna find the person that's missing. But anyway, so I'm interested to see that. But I just I will say, like, when it comes to Star Wars, I actually like the kind of side stories that Guy did.
Yeah.
I find that although I thought Obi-Wan was fine, like I actually want to see less named characters, especially ones with lightsabers. I want to see
only characters with no names. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, I mean, I did like the Mandalorian. So I think, to me, it's interesting to see more of these side stories. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about.
We're not here to talk about side stories. We're here to talk about main line.
Speaking of the Disney Empire.
That's fair too. Yeah.
I want to say that this last week I watched a new movie.
So did I.
I did. I watched a new movie. It's actually, I'll be honest, it's an old movie.
Is it appropriate for Spookytober?
It is, weirdly enough.
Okay, good. At least you're staying on script here.
So this movie, it was released in 1993, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's about witches. It's about witches.
Okay, so it's The Practice.
No,
that's I mean Practical Magic. The Practice was a show about lawyers.
Yeah,
it's still witches in their own right, but yeah.
No, it's not, and it's not Practical Magic, which was released in 1999. Or in 98, I forget. And it wasn't The Order. No, I watched a movie called Hocus Pocus.
Oh, the classic.
Right? Like, it's one of these things where, like, I have a lot of friends that talk about it, and I see people that dress up as the
ladies,
the Sanderson sisters.
Yeah.
But I'd never seen this movie, so I finally watched it, and of course, leading into big spoiler, I guess big spoiler, not spoiler, big thing, right? The sequel, Hocus Pocus 2, also came out this weekend or this last week, and I also watched it. So I saw 2 Hocus Pocus movies.
Well, that's crazy because I didn't rewatch Hocus Pocus 1, although I only watched that for the first time. Both Nicole and I watched that for the first time only a couple of years ago because we're like, people won't shut up about this movie. Let's see what it is. And it was fine. And we'll talk about it. But yeah, and I think it was 2 weeks ago now, the sequel was...
yeah, it may have been 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, was released on Disney Plus.
Hocus Pocus 2.
Right. So there's no confusion there. And yeah, we watched it the weekend of release as well. So hey, look at us lining up. And you know what? In an exclusive for the show, Andrew and I watched something brand new.
I know. We both did.
So let's talk about Hocus Pocus. I remember it fairly well. Because there's not a whole lot to remember. Like, it's pretty just a basic, straight-ahead kind of fun Halloween movie, right?
Right. And honestly, we can talk about them both together because they're both like, hey man, like I'm going to be honest. These are not complicated movies. The
really
first
not.
one is very much a movie that like it's not a kids movie, but it's a movie you take your kids to, right?
Sure. Yeah.
There's a villain. There's a relatable child characters. Yep. And you have fun because at the end of the movie, there's a musical number, which is weird. And at the end of the movie, the good guys win, the bad people don't win, and everyone lives happily ever after.
There we go.
And I imagine that's what the movie was like pitched as when they made it.
Right. Right.
And I think no one at the time thought like, you know what's going to happen? We're going to make this movie, and the villain is going to become iconic. Like
I mean, I don't know. They cast Bette Midler. Like, that was a choice. And like it's basically I don't even know if it's really worth recapping the story, but like basically Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker. Oh my god, I don't remember the name of the third lady, and I feel real bad.
I mean, I feel bad that the only reason I know the name of the second lady is because it's Sarah Jessica Parker.
Right. And I remember when did this come out? Like 93, you said?
Yeah,
I'm sure so. I saw trailers and images and made a very young Dan Bethel feel things, but
scared. I'm assuming.
Sure, let's just say that.
Kathy Najimy. That's the third.
That probably
sister.
is another reason. Yeah, the third sister. They are honestly, like, regardless of whether the movie's simple or not, or good or not, like, they are having the time of their lives. And I think that's proven by the fact that, God, 30 years later, they decided to come back to do another one.
Right.
And the road to that sequel is even bizarre, because I think they got together for like some weird like COVID benefit show or something like that on Disney or something like that, and like it was just like a goof, but like the fan response was so high, they're like, oh shit, I think we could probably do another movie.
Well, and what I would say is that this movie has like a weird cult following, and I will say like it also has
absolutely,
and I think the show recognizes that it also has a very queer cult following. Because in the second movie, when the Sanderson sisters show up for the dress up competition, the judge assumes that they're men, and most of the people on stage are basically drag queens, or men, So like this idea that like it has like a queer following, which I assume was part of like they knew that, right? They knew that they were creating a thing that would appeal to a target audience, but also to a broader audience, right? But it is a weird movie, because again, I look back and watch it and all right, I mean, I just watched it, and like these characters are like, they're bad people, like they're not good. They're literally like, eating children's souls, right? They're the villain, and it's weird that in Hocus Pocus 2, there's a certain amount of like. There's no redemption. It's more of like you're meant to feel bad for them at the end. It's like, and I remember at the end, like, well, good, they're fucking dead.
Right. It's interesting though. I think again, before we kind of dive into the intricacies, quote unquote, of the movie, like, it's an interesting situation because you could see like any movie, especially a sequel, being like focus tested to death and being like, what do people actually want, and like and trying to figure it out through statistics and data. But like what we've had in the 30 years since the first movie is kids grow up and the internet be created, right? And like there's more than we got to Disney, I guess is what I should say. Disney got the chance to really see what the marketplace was for a sequel in real time over the course of 30 years. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you read much about the second movie, but like one of the interesting things that I found while researching it was that not only, of course, did they bring back the three sisters as the characters in the movie, but they did their best to bring back as much of the original production team as possible.
I was wondering that because
accepting people that had retired or died, right?
And I was thinking that when the movie opened, it did feel like, it's like they went out of their way to make this feel and look like the original opening, but
And I think they got the original writer, maybe. And the original composer came back to do some work. Yeah, so it's like, it's an interesting testament to, I think, the, like I said before, when you're watching the first movie, for all of its successes and failures, it's clear they're having a lot of fun. It feels kind of like watching an Ocean's 11 movie, where it's like, this isn't particularly good, but it's fun watching friends have a good time, right? And like, one of the things I think that's interesting for them to recognize is like, it wasn't just the actors that was making it be a good time. It was the entire crew, and try to bring back that crew as much as possible. And again, for all its successes and failures, it's clear while watching the second movie, they had a blast while making it as well.
Right.
Complete with its own musical number.
Or two, which is even weirder.
Yeah. Okay. You got to up the ante with the sequel.
I mean, and that's, spoiler for those that are haven't seen it and are really excited.
That's our last spoiler alert, by the way.
But like the idea that when the witches first appear, they do a musical number, and you're like, wait, what? Yeah. And I remember thinking wait, we just opened with them doing and they even say, who are you singing to? I think. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. What's going on?
So we're both people that came to this franchise late.
This franchise, yeah, I guess it is a franchise now.
Definitely, I mean, so what had you heard about the movie? I guess, and what were you expecting versus what you got? Did expectations meet what you found, or was it not really as impactful to really make an impression?
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, as I finished watching the movie, I remember thinking like, oh, this is kind of like when I saw The Princess Bride as a grown-ass adult for the first time, and thought like, okay, this was fine, but I don't get why people talk about it the way they do, right? Like, it didn't have that effect where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so great, I'm going to go dress up as this character. Like, I didn't have that experience. So to me, it was like, okay, it's a fine, it's a kid's movie. But what I will say is, watching the second one, is I do feel like there's a point where I think it was in the second musical number. No, it's actually when one of the three girls, her boyfriend shows up dressed as a football player. So in Hocus Pocus 2, the kind of the third lady girlfriend who's like is in the out right now because of whatever. Her boyfriend shows up and he's dressed as a football player, and I'm like, oh, I think he's explicitly dressed as the football player from the other Disney movie series about a zombie in high school. And I think my thought was, oh, this movie has a certain amount of like, this is the crew that makes these like movies for young people, right? That's what it felt like. And I think that's fine. I think that's, the idea that if you're a teen, here's a movie that you can watch it. There's nothing too outlandish. And in this case, it connects you to a movie that was basically the same thing from 30 years ago. So you can connect to the movie your mom or your dad watched. And, but it's tame. It's got a musical number. It's got some silly stuff. It's got some dancing. There's some serious moments, but they're not too serious, It's got some fun characters, It's got some things that you can relate to as a kid, some things your parent will relate to as an adult. So, I think at the end of the day, it was like, oh, this is a totally fine Disney experience. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It's a Disney experience.
It is a perfectly fine way to spend an hour and a half. Right?
Like, I don't regret watching it. Right.
No, yeah, it's a lot of fun. That's the thing with me. Like, for the last couple of years, during Spookytober, we kind of make a list of like, what are some classic movies that either one or both of us have not seen. Both of us had not seen Hocus Pocus. I had not seen Practical Magic and all that kind of stuff, right? I think for a lot of these sort of cult films, just like I'm guessing with any cult film, I wouldn't understand. I'm always really mature and sober and academic when it comes to approaching movies. I definitely have no nostalgic problems with things like Highlander or Willow,
right, of course,
or Transformers, or no. But I tip my hand there. But like, yeah, nostalgia is a powerful thing, right?
Yeah.
And and I can definitely see, yeah, sure, watching this movie as a person, I think when I first saw this, late 30s, early 40s, when I first saw the first one, it did not have the impact on me that it seemed to have had on a lot of my peers and colleagues and friends. Mm-hmm. But rewind the clock a bit, if I'm 10 years old seeing this for the first time, maybe, it's interesting because I think, like you said, it's one of those movies that kind of appeals to everybody. Yeah. And I can see someone like who loved it as a kid. They watch it when they're late teens. They're like, oh shit, that's a joke I didn't understand when I was a kid because they're being kind of naughty or whatever, right? Yes. And so they find additional meaning. Like, oh, this movie is actually better than I thought it was. Whether that, we're not here to judge. We're not here to judge movies. If you think a movie's good, that's great. But like, just like with everything that maybe we find kind of grows with us in a sense that we can keep coming back to a text and going like, oh, this actually, I'm finding new things. I'm finding stuff that I can relate to at this age. Despite being a silly movie about goofy witches, like I can see someone, if it hits you at the right time when you're young and you keep coming back to it as you grow, it can definitely be one of those movies that you become, if not fanatical about, at least very devoted to.
Right.
Because it's fun to watch and it does have something for everyone.
Well, and actually I really like that idea that if you watch it when you're very young, it's a fun movie, and then you watch it as you're older, you start to hear things or see things that you didn't necessarily understand. And actually, the one I think about is there's a scene in the first movie where the three witches get on a bus, and the bus driver, there's actually quite a few scenes in the original movie where I'm like, what the fuck is going on, right? But one of them, they get on this bus, and they don't they don't know what a bus is, whatever. And they say, we're looking for children. And the bus driver says something like, well, I can help you all with that, But you realize, again, I think if you're a kid, you're like, oh, I know, he drives kids around. Like, no, he's very clearly talking about helping them make children because that's what he thinks they're looking for. And again, that's actually, I think I laughed at that. I was like, oh my God. This horny ass bus driver is like, yeah, ladies, I'll help all three of you out, right? And it's like, wow, this is, but again, done in the way. So I do appreciate that, like the idea that you watch it, you have this very innocent understanding of the film, and then you watch it again, you're like, oh, wait a second, who's the horny bus driver? So I think that's a fair assessment. I'm curious how this movie, this new one, will hold up. Like if it will have that same experience for the for kids that see it now.
It's an interesting entry, because I think it works as a standalone movie, just like another Hocus Pocus movie, but they do make some interesting callbacks to the first movie, and not even callbacks, connections to the first movie that weren't in the first movie. At least not that I remember. Like the guy that runs the magic shop. I don't know if that character is actually in the first movie at all. Well, but definitely, they make it so his character is there during the events of the first movie.
Right. If anything, that was some random kid they had in a costume, and then they cut some new scenes. But no, I think that was just completely added. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know, because also there's if you want, again, we're not reviewing the movies per se, but like, I don't remember the first movie that well, despite only watching it a few years ago. But like, it's not that different. It's like a remake, not a remake. Right. It's like a remix.
No, the story is pretty similar. That they come back and they want to not die, and they have they have a night to do it.
Right.
Now the difference is, they find a different way to do it. Right. But it does. It is definitely like, hey, this is the same story. And
we have modern kids this time.
Our main characters, the kids, they end up doing it. They cause it to happen, although for different reasons. Right. And they end up saving the day. But I'll say in a different way. That's the one thing I think I liked better about the new one is, and we can get all like, there's plenty of internet trolls out there who are upset. But I actually liked the idea of the three young girls, like, essentially becoming their own coven, right? Like
Yeah.
that they,
Yeah.
that you know, they lay it out for you. They're, Chekhov's magic powers, where the magic shop guy said, "Oh, a 16th birthday. That's when a witch comes in her own." Like they want you to know that that's what's going to happen, and it does. And you see these young girls. Like able to, one of them is able to wield magic, but then realizing that we are better together.
Right.
And I like that. Like, I get there's some Republican people out there who are like, oh, this is promoting witchcraft. Like, whatever.
Sure.
I like that the main characters are able to address it, but not just in a like dipshit way, right? Like they're like, no, we are able to address this in a like an adult way.
What I like about that angle of it that I found more interesting than maybe the first one, which is I like that there's kind of that darker kind of twist to the ending. It's like, yeah, we saved the world from the Sanderson sisters. I'm not saying that the main characters in this movie are evil or anything like that, but like it's a cycle that's continuing, right? That when one coven goes, another one pops up, right?
Right, and it's definitely the idea that we don't know, like, are these young girls going to grow up to be bad guys, or are they?
It's within their power, literally, and the idea, of course, is being like, maybe like into every generation a Slayer is born, maybe into every generation a coven is born, and if you had to defeat an evil coven, maybe you will take that knowledge and do better next time, right? I think it's the optimistic reading of the ending there. But just the fact that they have kind of like this I don't want to say open-ended, but an interpretive kind of ending that you can read into if you want to is pretty cool, and a nice little sort of postmodern take on what is ostensibly just a straight ahead Halloween comedy family film, and it's neat.
But it's still a Halloween comedy family film, right? Like it's still, it played a lot of jokes. It did a lot of the kind of the things you'd expect from this movie in a modern context, and I think that worked for me.
Yeah. I think the other standout part of the new movie that maybe actually pushes it a couple levels above the original is that opening of the sisters as kids. Actually giving some history to
some context and history,
to the Sanderson sisters, and more than that, like I was just flabbergasted by how good the casting was for the girls playing the children version of the Sanderson sisters. Actually, not only because they got them to look like them, but like they were fantastic actors. Like it's like, did they get these kids? Like, were these prodigies they pulled from Juilliard? Like, what is happening here?
Well, and for me, the weird part about that backstory and what it ended up doing was not what it meant for the young women they got for those I thought were great, but the idea that they established, I guess, additional backstory for, was it Billy Butcherson?
Yeah.
As played by Doug Jones.
Doug Jones, yeah.
But the idea that they're like, oh no, he's not just this, random zombie. I mean, he wasn't a random zombie, but like they give him, like, oh no, he's actually not who we thought he was.
Right.
And
Doug Jones was Billy in both movies.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
And of course, like if you know Doug Jones and what he does, it is like this is what the parts he plays. Although I will say, watching the new one, there were moments where I'm like, Captain Saru. Like I had a real Star Trek Discovery moment where I'm like,
yeah.
He's been doing this for a while. Like there's times where like he said things where I'm like, oh, is that Billy Butcherson or is that Captain Saru? I can't really tell. But
I'm just like, it's the guy from every Guillermo del Toro movie,
right? Or everything else.
The Silver Surfer.
But no, it's I do think having those kids there and giving that opportunity. I mean, who knows? Like I like this idea that like, oh, we're setting them up to be the next generation of like, okay, whatever.
Right.
Like, who knows?
Right, that's the next Disney Plus like kids series, Hocus Pocus: The Next Generation, and then they make 15 like made-for-TV movies based on that.
It's funny because I did a quick look up on IMDb and I saw some reference to a TV movie or a TV series. I'm like, oh wait, they're not going to? Are they? They may. Who knows?
Right.
That's probably taking it too far, but
I guess the unlikelihood of a sequel in the first place kind of begs this question. But like, I feel like we're just diving into a realm of seriousness that we don't need to for this franchise. But Hocus Pocus 3, would you be there for it? Do you think it's needed? I mean, I guess the question is also being asked, was a sequel needed? And I think the answer to that is like, no, it wasn't. But they decided to actually do something with the sequel that made it unique and interesting while retaining the fun and plot of the original in a lot of ways.
Man, I watch a lot of stuff. Sure.
Fair enough.
Sure. Now that I've seen the first two, I'll watch the third.
You know what? It's like it's kind of like, you know what? Keep bringing Peter Cullen back to play Optimus Prime just as long as he can. You know, we got these three actresses. Let's keep bringing them in. Why not?
I feel bad. When you say it that way, you're right. I gave up on Transformers after the second movie. But you know what? I'll give Hocus Pocus a third.
You stayed on for a movie too long.
Like, in my defense, Transformers 2 was Transformers 1. They were both rough, where I think Hocus Pocus wasn't. You know, I'll give it... It was all right. I'll say for a third if they do it.
Sure.
It's no Transformers. Yeah, I'm waiting for Hocus Pocus Bumblebee.
Yeah. Hocus Pocus, the dark side of the moon. Or what's it called? The dark of the moon. Hocus Pocus, Age of Extinction. I like this, actually. Hocus Pocus : Bumblebee? Sure, why not? Either way, it's a light episode this week, but I think it's fun to celebrate. I think celebrate's the right word. A fun movie like this, and especially I think, if anything, what we like to do here on the show is I hate to say the word again, but like celebrate, elevate the chances that pop culture takes, and especially like big studios like Disney, where like they had no reason to take a chance on Hocus Pocus 2, but they did it anyway, and it turned out all right, you know. Yeah. And it's cool, and it's funny to see Disney taking swings like that, which they don't need to do,
right?
You know, kind of going to Andor as well, going back to Andor, like they don't need to do that. It's like you said, we already know how that story ends. And so that innately makes that story depressing as hell, probably. But like, why not? If someone comes to them with a good idea, with the clear vision, just they clearly have the money to do it. So why not do it? Right. And they have the avenue with their own streaming service to just get it out there. And it's cool to see them taking advantage of that. It seems like they're taking advantage of that in all the right ways.
I think so.
So Hocus Pocus 2. Two parentheses with the comma in the middle up from us. That's our logo. I was trying to...
Oh, okay.
Two
I was like, what are you doing?
No, it's not parentheses. They're brackets with a comma. We could just cut that. So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topics we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page for this episode at forallintents.net.
You can also post your comments or engage in conversations with other listeners on our Facebook page.
You can find us on other social media as well, such as Twitter and Instagram, where you can find us at our respective handles. On Twitter, you can find Andrew at Profound Dark, tweeting about tabletop role-playing games. You can find me at dbethel. You can also find us on Instagram, where you can find Andrew at Profound Brick, and me and my work at dbethel Comics.
While you're at our website at forallintents.net, you can also take a look at our YouTube page, which you can find by clicking on the link in the corner that says YouTube. There you'll find our show. And if you're listening to our show on YouTube, or if you found it by clicking on the link, please feel free to like and subscribe by, as the kids say, ringing that bell.
We use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusae, the other is called District 4. Both written and performed by Kevin McLeod, the Clan McLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire.
You can find his music at incompetech.filmmusic.io, and that's all licensed under the Creative Commons 4.0 Attribution License.
If you like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out even more, though, would be to go to their storefront, leaving some sort of review, whether a text review or using their proprietary metric will help spread the word to new potential listeners through the magic of algorithms. She-Hulk. That's what we're looking forward to next week, dear listeners. Most likely.
Oh no, yeah, but we can't say anything because it's we're cooling down from the finale.
I think we're still like we're respecting the spoiler cloud, right? Like
and the spoiler cloud being that we have not actually seen it yet.
No, but I'm also saying that with regards to the penultimate episode, which was a damn delight, if I do say so myself.
So, but there's definitely a lot to talk about with She-Hulk, we think.
Yeah, a really interesting show. And the one thing I read, and again, we haven't seen the finale. Facebook is dumb. Let me just say that straight up. But be sure to like and subscribe. But like, there's that news tab on Facebook, and I saw this total clickbaity ad that's like, She-Hulk finale has a record-breaking runtime. I'm like, oh man, are they doing a long-ass episode? No, apparently, this is going to be the shortest MCU Disney Plus season finale ever, at like 35 minutes.
The one thing I'm learning.
That's why you come here, for hard-hitting news like that, dear listeners. 14th source.
What I'm learning is just like all this clickbaity shit. But however, there's one clickbaity shit. As we go out this week, they did release, I guess, the final trailer for the final episode of Jodie Whittaker's run on Doctor Who.
Oh, Power of the Doctor.
Power of the Doctor. They did the final trailer, which is not like, there's not a lot going on there, so don't, nothing to stress. But they did release a release date, which
in October, right?
They not in October 23rd. So by the time this episode airs, it'll be in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Or no, wait, actually a week.
No,
week?
9 days.
Yeah,
9 days.
A week and change.
So, Jed, we're gonna have a lot to talk about in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Awesome. So stay tuned, I guess.
Right, for the return of Dorothy Ace McShane.
Oh my god. We can't start talking about that because that's just a whole, oh my god. I'm so excited. We've all seen the pictures. Maybe that'll be no, that shouldn't be the picture for this episode. But
No, just I'm saying that's something we'll talk about in a couple weeks.
Oh my god. Anyway,
we're obviously excited about some nostalgia shit.
Hell yes. Yeah, the theme of the episode this week. So until you become overwhelmed and overpowered by nostalgia.
Or a bat.
I'm D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And for all intents and purposes,
that was a podcast. Dude, good, like, and I put this in quotes, good parm is actually expensive and only available in bricks.
They're not worth my time.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. He's a disillusioned college student, right? He's like, my life sucks.
Dan Bethel, 2022. I mean, sorry, not 2022. Oh, God. 2002, probably. 2002. Yeah. That's when I flunked out of school. My favorite cheese of all time is feta. I eat that like, they come in little squares. I just bite into that shit. I can't. I'm addicted to feta. I will eat an entire little square of feta on my own, unprompted, and will not feel bad about it.
Like, as if other people have to
Nicole's
be
like, hey, why don't you make a salad? I'm like, okay, salad, fucking cut up some carrots, fucking throw some almonds in there, fucking throw some fucking olives in there. Oh, did you get the feta, Dan? Not yet. I pull off a little corner, sprinkle it. I'm like, well, let's just take a bite out of this. Put it back in, and then you know what? I might go back for another. I love feta. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not ashamed.
All right. If you
no,
or any other
momentum's lost. Momentum's gone. It's gone. We can't do the show anymore. So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the time, yeah, we were really on a roll. I have been informed that I am a criminal, that I am a sinner, that I'm going straight to hell. We are adult men in our 40s. Mm-hmm. We tried it. We don't keep very many snacks in our home because so we alternate kind of with what's available at Costco, basically.
I love Costco. Wish I had a car.
A standard kind of snack we have. They have these like little granola bars. They're great. I take them with me to school because I don't eat lunch anymore, so it's perfect. But we've also tried something new. Nicole got a big old Costco size pack of string cheese, which I don't really associate with people are in our age group consuming.
So, I've never eaten string cheese.
On principle?
I never did. I like cheese.
Never been exposed to it, really, or?
My parents. So I discovered my parents. They just didn't buy certain things because they were like fucking elitist or something.
In my defense, string cheese was never a common feature in my household growing up either for some strange reason. Maybe it just wasn't really a San Luis thing. I don't know.
Well, but I feel like I know people that ate string cheese. That's the thing. We just might be weird.
But the thing is this, like, I know what the culture of string cheese is. It's like, it's a toy, right? It's a toy.
I thought it was food, but
well, it's food. It's a food you can play with because you can peel shit off of it, right? Nicole the other day was caught unawares and reacted with sheer horror because I opened a string cheese and just started eating it.
Oh, it's just biting into the stick?
Yeah. And she's like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, I'm eating a string cheese. This is none of your fucking business. And she's like, you're not eating it right. I'm like, it's in my mouth. I am masticating and swallowing.
So this is probably why I also don't eat string cheese. Like, I'll just eat the cheese sticks or whatever, right? Like, because
I guess it's great. Like, it's like a little chunks of fucking matzah in your fucking mouth. Mozzarella, not matzo balls. But you know what? And so I've tried to train myself. I'm not forcing myself to peel strings of string cheese off. I take a couple bites and then you know what? I pull a string off. It's kind of fun. Go back to biting it because I'm not here to play with my food. Let's get down to business
to defeat the Huns.
Oh, did they send me doctors when I asked for sons? I don't think that was in the new movie, was it?
No, there's no fun in the new movie, apparently.
Damn.